All right. Welcome to the Executive Committee of the Metro Council. Today is April the 24th. It's about 3:02 p.m. And so why don't we check and see who we've got on the call? I heard Council Member Syracuse is on there. Councilmember Mendez, you on? All right. Councilmember Mendez, you on?
Yes, I'm here, boss.
That's Councilmember Hager.
I'm here, Jim.
Oh, there you are. Okay. All right. Who else is on? Wait a minute. I can't hear. All right. So, Councilmember Allen, are you on? I'm going to check my. Hold on just a second. I'm just going to get a roll call so I can make sure I don't miss anybody. Okay. All right. So, Councilmember Roten, are you on?
I'm on, Mr. Vice Mayor.
All right. Councilmember Sledge?
Here.
Okay. Councilmember Swope? Councilmember Murphy?
Here.
Okay. Councilmember Pulley? All right. I think I heard Councilmember Allen, but I'm double checking.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. There you are. Okay. Councilmember O'Connell? All right. Councilmember Rosenberg? Councilmember Henderson?
Here.
Okay, there you are. Councilmember Swope, are you on?
I'm here.
There you are. All right. Councilmember Roberts?
I'm here.
Okay. I know Councilmember Hager is on. Councilmember Hurt? All right, and Councilmember Porterfield? She had just sent me a text and said she was going to be tied up for at the beginning of the meeting. Okay, and we should have J.O.N. Cooper. Mr. Cooper, you on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and Keith Durbin, are you on?
Here.
Mr. Durbin, there you are. And Slade is on. Slade Hurt is on. And then we had invited Lucy Kempf. Lucy, are you on?
Here.
There you are. Okay. All right. So thanks for agreeing to get back on this call. We had two major things that we wanted to talk about today, and I'll tell you the two things. One was obviously the budget is going to be presented to the council on Tuesday afternoon, 3:30 to 5. And I believe that information has been provided to all council members about the upcoming budget schedule. And so we wanted to let Councilmember Mendez talk about anything he needed to about the budget and see if anybody has any questions as we go into this period of time. But again, it'll be presented on Tuesday and it should be filed, I think, the next day on the 29th is what I heard. But I'll let Bob Mendez talk about that in just a minute. The second part of it, which is probably going to take a little longer, is our next meeting, May the 5th, will be a public hearing night. We have deferred our public hearing bills until the first meeting in May. We know that the Planning Commission met last night and had a public hearing meeting. So what we wanted to do was kind of let Keith Urban explain how that worked, have Lucy kind of explain what, how it worked, whether there were parts of it that worked, parts of it that didn't work. and then figure out where we go forward, because obviously the Planning Commission is now sending us stuff through a public hearing process. And the question is, how do we proceed? One other point about all that is this, if we, depending on how we proceed on the 5th of May, and Bob will probably talk about this, we're going to have a public hearing on the budget as well. And so if we proceed on the 5th, it does give us kind of a test run to see how it works, so we can be prepared in June when we have a public hearing on the budget. So anyway, those are the two major things we wanted to talk about today. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Mendez to kind of give us an update on the budget and the budget process and see what questions we have. So Bob, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. Vice Mayor. You hit the high points. I'll go into some detail on several of them. So we will get the budget midweek next week. We'll get the presentation on Tuesday at 3:30, and the actual budget, I think, the next day. We will have then first and second reading. First reading will happen May 5. When we get to May 19, which would normally be second reading, we'll probably defer the budget till the June 2nd meeting. On June 2nd, that's when in previous years we would typically have had the public hearing on the budget, and we'll do that again. So it'll be June 2nd. That's the time where we're going to have to be geared up for having the public hearing, and then get a budget passed after that in June. So for those who have been around for previous years, this is, the timing is going to be typical. Despite all the effort to have it go faster, we're just going to have the typical normal timing. There are wild cards. How long are we going to be meeting remotely? The executive order from the governor that allows us to meet remotely currently expires on May 18. I've been told by people close to the governor that I talked to that that's likely going to be extended. And so we're going to have the option to meet remotely probably into June. I'm assuming we will likely choose to have a remote meeting on June 2nd, which means the remote public hearing. And that means that all the departmental hearings that we'll have on the schedule you already have gotten are going to happen remotely too. So I've been thinking an awful lot about how to make sure to have a robust process, a public process, a transparent process, but understanding that this remote methodology is difficult. I am contemplating for the departmental hearings. I haven't decided this yet. I'm told by John Cooper, Council Director Cooper, I've got leeway as committee chair to decide how this goes. But I'm thinking about having the timeline, where there's 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 45 minutes for each department, having that be a hard amount of time rather than letting it be an unlimited amount of time like we've done in previous years, just so we don't have half the Metro government sitting on a WebEx call for hours at a time. If those end up being hard deadlines, we're going to have a way for questions to be answered in case we don't get to them in the time allotted. I'm told that some WebEx meetings from other groups will capture questions from participants and then answer them afterwards. And it's a long-winded way of saying I'm still working on exactly how the departmental hearings are going to work, all remotely, multiple days of them, in a way where we can get meaningful information, but not have hour after hour, day after day of the WebEx calls. So that's a lot more than I knew last time we talked, and it's still a little bit of a work in progress, other than knowing for sure we get the budget next week, for sure a public hearing on June 2nd, and for sure we'll have to get the budget passed in a couple weeks after June 2nd.
Hey, Bob, can you give us any idea? John Cooper may know this. The program on Tuesday, 3:30. I've heard it's going to be a presentation, or is the mayor going to speak? And then, do we know who's going to present? Is the director Crumbo going to present, or do we know anything about that?
All the comments they've made are that they've said consistently the mayor will make a presentation followed by finance. I'm not clear whether, like, usually there's a detailed PowerPoint that goes along with it. I don't know whether it's the mayor giving a speech and then finance doing the PowerPoint, or the mayor doing the PowerPoint. I just don't know the answer to that.
Okay. And I guess, Mr. Cooper, we may want to send a message down to the mayor's office, just make sure that if they're going to do a PowerPoint, obviously they'll probably want to send that out in advance of the meeting. They probably wouldn't send it out too far in advance, but just something so people can go ahead and pull it up on the screen. Keith, Mr. Durbin, do you know, is there anything that we need to know going into this about being prepared to, be able to see this?
No, my understanding at this point, it will be unique invitations, just like to this meeting. It'll be the same tool set that you use. Councilman Mendez, I'm glad to hear your description of what you're looking for, because we can turn on some features around questions and answers that we can capture those things. And so it may be a situation where they would want that turned on as well. I've been in communication with them today, looking for the list of people that they want to set up, including Kevin and Kristen and Kim McDaniel. So they are getting prepared for it, but that's about all I know.
Okay. All right. Any questions from council members to Councilmember Mendez? So, Councilor Mendez, it sounds like, I know that we were on a different schedule about a month and a half ago. Now we're on sort of the same schedule we're on in a typical budget year. We have until June 30th to try to pass a budget. And it sounds like the budget process will follow along in kind of the same typical format as we normally would. We're just having to do a lot of the stuff by through telecommunications.
Yeah, and Council Member Henderson has her hand up.
Oh, okay. I do not have a thing, so I can't see. So you may want to call. So, Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. Yep. I think I wanted to concur with Bob on the merit of having distinct departmental meetings or timeframes with a hard stop. I know because we have so many departments, I was not a fan of the one big all committees in one approach last time, with kind of so many people on the call and trying to figure out when the stop was. So just from the staff side, Mr. Durbin and technical support, I know perhaps you don't want to create a separate meeting for every single department because, some, as colleagues will know in the past, have 10 minutes of questions, and then others, there is a lot under the umbrella of Public Works, Water Department, Public Works Department, and so that usually is a long hearing. And so I just would ask, I appreciate a distinct time frame so that we don't go over, but I would also ask that, it not just be kind of lumped into a big pot, so that there's a appropriate time for questions, and that if we know what the time frame is, then, we can do some planning on the front end as to garnering the questions as well, perhaps.
All right, Councilor Mendez, in response.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all well taken and along the lines that I'm thinking. Council Director Cooper and I have worked up a set of questions to send to department heads that we've asked them to answer by close of business next Tuesday. That gives them two Tuesdays from now. So they'd have about a week after budget is out to respond. And we would get them committed to get them all up online by about May 7, which is a Thursday. The first departmental hearings start on May 11, a Monday. And so the idea would be a certain base level of information that's the same questions to every department, hopefully is online 4 or 5 days before hearings start. I'm going to try to honestly be fairly aggressive in cutting off any question for which there's an answer online already, just because of we don't need to spend time answering stuff that there's already answers for. I don't have the details worked out, but I think I'm going to try to set up a mechanism where council members can send questions for departments in advance, collect any ones made during, and have the administration answer them all with the hope of being, at least as, and hopefully more responsive and more comprehensive than we've been in the past, just not with us all sitting around for 30 hours of WebEx calls over a couple weeks.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And just as to add on to that, I know the kind of the functionality of the SharePoint, which I don't think any of us are particularly well versed in, but I notice it kind of works with our whole Outlook suite of things that we have. I had asked if Mr. Hurd, just, in preparation for the budget, I've had a lot of back and forth with the Director of Public Works, and I'm trying to kind of compile those things. And so, whether it's in advance of a WebEx committee meeting where there's, quite a lot of things being sent to council members that we have to kind of absorb and review, I think there would be merit in each committee having a SharePoint folder. I know in the past, as part of budget season, there was a SharePoint for budget, but I don't know if different kind of departments or committees existed within that as kind of sub. But, that might be a place where some of this, preparation work or questions or, subsequent responses, that those could live in a particular space instead of just being, kind of pinged quite a lot with emails and trying to kind of keep up. Well, did that come from this person, or how did that come from that person, and trying to find those. So I would be interested to know from staff, whether Mr. Hurd or Mr. Durbin, how that need or request might dovetail with what Councilman Mendez is talking about related to the budget process.
This is Keith. Councilor, we're happy to work with you on that. We would just need to talk to John or someone about how you would want that SharePoint set up, and then we're happy to get that set up. That's a pretty trivial matter, and then we can help educate on where it is, the organizational structure. It's just a fancy filing system is really, at the end of the day, what you're looking at. So I think it should meet the needs that you're looking for really well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Councilman Henderson, does that take care of your questions for now?
It does. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I finally found the button that allows me to see if anybody's got their hand up. So becoming very technically savvy. All right. Don't see anybody else's hand up at this point. I will say that you should have received a letter that we got from Mike Jameson about the budget documents. I know that in the past, sometimes everybody's gotten them, and then there are lots of pages of stuff, and they've been trying to get away from, they and us have been trying to get away from printing all these copies because we're killing trees. And so The idea this time it'll all be available online as it always is. They'll give you a sample copy or something simple that you can download if you want that and print. But they're not going to print them. The thing that came up this time was that in terms of printing, that was going to have to put people in the same room, and they didn't want to do that. So they sent the message out that it's available online. I know Councilmember Parker told us that he'd like to have a printed copy, and he sent a message out to everybody and said he's going to print one. If other people want to get them printed, he'd take care of getting people a printed copy just to get in touch with him. All right. So, Councilmember Mendes, anything else on that, on the budget overall?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So the second part of this conversation is a little bit more intricate in the sense of, again, the next meeting, May the 5th, we've got public bills. We've got bills scheduled on public hearing. I know that the Planning Commission met last night, and I understand they were there for a while. 7 hours is what I was told. But they did have bills come up on public hearing. And so what I wanted to do today was have a discussion led by Keith Durbin, and Lucy Kempf is also on the call, to see how it went, how everything went last night, and then how we would do it if we were prepared to go ahead with bills on public hearing at the next meeting. So Mr. Durbin, thank you for being on the call, and Lucy Kempf, thank you for being on the call. I'll start with Keith. If you'll just kind of tell us how it was set up and how it went, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vice Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about what we've accomplished since the last time we spoke. You know, we spent a lot of time baselining other cities and spending, researching kind of what possibilities we have for providing the opportunity for people not to only participate by viewing, but actually participate by providing public comment. And we feel like we've established a process for that feedback in meetings. And as you said, this has been used successfully, not only in the Planning Commission, but earlier this week, Metro Historic Zoning also met, and Robin Ziegler felt that it went really well for their purposes as well, though they didn't have as many calls in that the Planning Commission had. Let me talk to you a little bit about how the process in general is set up from both a technical and an operational perspective. And just so everyone knows, we have worked hand in hand with both John Cooper as well as Metro Legal throughout this design to make sure that it meets the needs that Metro Legal says that this process needs to. So what we've done is the basis for this continues to be our WebEx infrastructure. So the meeting will continue to be a meeting in WebEx, or an event actually is the proper term, as you've seen in the past. Additionally, we have established a small call center using the same software that we use for the ITS help desk and for the COVID response question lines that have been set up. That's a Cisco piece of software, integrates directly into the WebEx software. And so during the meeting, you start the meeting as normal. And then at the appropriate point in the meeting, when there is an agenda item that's open for a public comment, the chairperson announces to the meeting that everyone, we are going to be taking comments on agenda items XYZ. Then on the feed that Metro Nashville Network gets, that is streamed and is also on cable, you will have a notice that appears as well that says to speak or to provide comment on agenda item XYZ, call 615-555-5555. At that point, the call center kicks into gear, and up to 100 people at a time currently can call just like any call center. When they call, a message that Metro Legal wrote will be played that lays out the terms under which they must abide when making their comments. That person then will be on hold with a message kind of repeating, kind of saying those same things. that until one of the operators, and there are going to be a couple of operators like we did last night. The operator will answer, ask that person for their name, their home address, and the item that they want to speak on. So if the item number, so let's say we're on item XYZ1, if they're actually talking about item ABC, the operator will let them know, hey, this is passed, you missed your opportunity. If the item is one that is in the future of the agenda, is not being considered yet, they will be asked to call back later, because this queue is on, this call-in queue is only open for the item that is being considered at this time. Additionally, if they give obviously fake information, then legal has advised that that person can be dropped, though obviously that is a big deal, but that is what we're hearing. So let's say they pass all those gates, they've given the proper information, they're on the right item. They then are put in a first in, first out queue that again is integrated directly from the call center software into WebEx. So when the meeting progresses to the public comment phase of the agenda item, the person leading the meeting calls for the first caller, and that first line is transferred into the meeting and unmuted. That person will get a little introduction, they introduce themselves, they say their piece. The process that was used at the Planning Commission and Historic Zoning, at the 30-second mark from the time their time is up, someone lets them know that they have 30 seconds left, and then when time is up, they are then asked to conclude their comments. Once they are done with speaking, the call is hung up, and that next caller is queued, and the process repeats itself. It then proceeds until there are no more calls on that item. And in other words, the queue is agenda item specific and is empty at the end of each agenda item. So that's how the meeting runner knows that there are no more people that are interested in speaking to that call. Last night at the Planning Commission, there were 51 calls to the call center per hour records. I'm not exactly sure if that equated to 51 individuals speaking, but that's the number of calls we have. In addition to that, we expect this week, I got the final reviews from John Cooper and Metro Legal earlier today. We're also going to have a 5 to 10 minute, probably closer to 5, public service announcement that will run on Metro Nashville Network. It'll also be on YouTube for council members to distribute as you see fit. By middle of next week, that is going to walk members of the public through this process, what they need to do, how they find an agenda, how they find the agenda item, what to watch for on the screen, and then when to pick up the phone and call to make sure that as broad a group as possible has access to that process. Then finally, just one more thing to mention to you, to alleviate the concern, which you've probably all seen in the news, where cities and counties are being Zoom bombed by meetings that aren't very tightly controlled. The risk that we run on a meeting using this process is that somebody gets through all of those gates. We open up the microphone for them and they start spewing profanity or some such nonsense. The operators that are manning that are listening to each of these conversations, and they have the opportunity to hang that phone up, mute that person. Should somebody wish to give a second chance, that's y'all's call, or they can just hang up that call at that time. And then before I turn it over to Lucy or to take questions, just a couple of key takeaways that from our standpoint are pretty much the same thing that I said last time. There is an immense amount of coordination that has to take place between ITS staff and departmental staff to make these things run smoothly. This is not just a Zoom telephone call by any stretch of the imagination. And so to that, this coming week, we will be running at least 2 run-throughs of a rough form of the agenda. One kind of internally, one that I've invited the vice mayor to probably next Friday as well, just to make sure that the processes that worked and applied for historic zoning and planning commission fully apply here, and that the vice mayor and others are comfortable with that. And that means there is a tremendous amount of attention that has to be given to the agenda and understanding the agenda components and the flow of the meeting. You guys have a lot of that in place already, so it's really just inserting this this public component into that. And I can ask questions now, or I know Lucy is on the call, and I think she's got a really good perspective to give based on her having been through this process over the last couple of weeks, culminating in last night's meeting.
So why don't I let Lucy kind of chime in, and then we'll take questions for both of you. So Ms. Kemp, you're
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, for inviting me to share my experience. We did have a 7-hour meeting, and so if I'm not able to complete a sentence, or Councilwoman Murphy on the line here is yawning or anything, hope y'all will forgive us. So last night was our 3rd remote meeting, and the first one that included public comment, and we did use the audio WebEx platform that I know Council has experience with. I would say that while the first several meetings went well, there was some skepticism and concern among several of the commissioners about how well the public comment portion would actually go. And so I did a fair amount of hand-holding and education the week of the meeting, but I'm really pleased to report that the commissioners' feedback since the meeting has been overwhelmingly positive. So the ones who were really concerned that this wouldn't be a sufficient tool have all written and reached out today and said they thought we met the high threshold that I think both council and planning commission would want, which is good news. Keith has already told you about the number of call-ins that we had, and that was for about 5 cases. So we opted for 4 methods of public input. One was written, and we asked the public to submit those written comments by deadline so that we could provide the commissioners a packet of all the public comments 2 days in advance of the meeting, and that really helped them feel more prepared. We had a voice message system that we played, so folks could call in a few days before the meeting, leave a message, and then we just played them during the hearing. Keith already mentioned we had the live call-in. And then lastly, we had a remote ITS station where people can physically go. And we did that to meet sort of the legal and public notice requirements that we had. But at this point, that option is going to go away. So I've heard from legal now that we don't need to provide a physical location. So in the future, we're going to be looking at the first 3 options that I talked about. I don't know that we needed all of those as a means to, to accomplish a successful public hearing, but I felt like each one had its merits. I think we wanted as many opportunities for folks to participate as a way to address what we perceive to be some public skepticism that remote meetings would be appropriate, and to create a substantive record to protect the commission's decisions. So, Councilwoman Murphy is here, and I think would be interesting to get her perspective as a commissioner. I would just add a couple points about sort of dovetailing what Keith said about sort of what we did as staff. And we're happy to share more information or materials with you if it'd be helpful. And there are 6 points here. First, we prioritized cases, and I know y'all are having those conversations at council, but we tried to start small, and 5 cases was 7 hours. So maybe y'all can do better than we. The second thing we did is we provided an agenda to ITS that had documented sort of participation loops for each agenda item. And so then ITS provided us with a strategy for each. I'm happy to share that with you. We had a script for the chairman. He ran it kind of like a camp session, and a lot of small things really seem to help the meeting run better, like reminding folks to press mute. I mean, it's like the little things, as y'all know. We had a public notice process that drove people to a dynamic website because the situation has changed so frequently. It helped to just have a format and a website that we knew could be updated every day. And that was a dedicated page. And every public conversation I had with a neighborhood group or a council member, I was able to say, go here. One key question for you to think about is whether you're going to view exhibits during the meeting. That's, as y'all know, critical for planning. We have PowerPoint presentations. We did allow the public to submit exhibits to be viewed. I can't remember if that's something council entertains or not, but that would be a question to think about. To Keith's point, we had 4 staff closely administering the meeting, and it took quite a bit of work for us to put the folks in place in the right roles to manage the meeting. And this was an investment that we as a department had to make. We couldn't really rely on Keith and his team to do that. The folks that we had functioning to help the meeting run have very detailed, strong working knowledge of the commission and its procedures. And so I would think that that is something to think about at council. We did have an intense amount of coordination. We had lots of meetings at planning where we would meet, talk about this for 30 minutes, put out a game plan, and then revisit it, looking for gaps. And I think we got it right, and we're learning, but it wasn't something we could just throw together. The last point I would make is that Councilwoman Benedict had a controversial case that we felt like we had to hear for some legal reasons. I won't go into it. But there were a lot of questions and concerns within her community about why we were having the meeting. Many of her constituents, I think it would be fair to say, felt that they were disadvantaged in not being able to be present as a collective kind of group. I think you'd probably hear some different perspectives about how that actually played out in the meeting. Mine was that it actually ended up being a fairly balanced presentation. But I think if you choose to hear controversial cases, it would just be important to develop a strategy for how to talk to people about that. I had several phone calls with her constituents and neighborhood leaders to try to really help them get comfortable with the format. So anyway, just last thing I'd say, generally speaking, I've had some folks tell me that they think that the call-in option in particular is easier and more pleasant than coming to a planning commission meeting and spending hours in person, because you're sort of sitting on your sofa. And so I wonder if people are going to want that over the long term after this pandemic passes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But those are my thoughts. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Lucy. Let me ask Councilmember Murphy if she wants to chime in on how she felt the meeting went last night, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So Lucy and I have spoke about the meeting last night, and Keith and I have spoke about the meeting last night. And quite frankly, the way the meeting was run blew my mind at how smoothly it was, at how professional her staff was. They must have been practicing this for weeks, it feels like, because they had it on spot. And I think that it's really important. And part of that is because her staff is used to dealing with members of the public and explaining the process on a regular basis at planning commission meetings anyway. And so her staff is kind of already trained to do some of that, but she had the right people in the right place. And I said it on the meeting last night, and I'd say it again tonight. It's a huge ask, but it is probably worth maybe considering having some first staff help us, because when we do the public hearing, because they'll be able to explain, they're already trained, this is their bailiwick, to help with the call center and things like that. The reason the meeting went for 7 hours for so few of items, I think it would have gone that long anyway, with or without being virtual, potentially. We all know, I've been there for a one case meeting and it went 5 hours. I think last night was just, it was not due to the fact of it being virtual. And I really think that it went well. There's some things that I think that we could work on, that they were on top of. Obviously, the commission meeting is run a little differently, where we're all muted all the time and we don't say anything until it's discussion period, which is different for us making motions and being called on more frequently. But I think that probably council members, we need to get more disciplined on when roll call's coming up, pressing our buttons. We know who I know that Tom Druffel is going to be called before me. I need to press my button when Gloria or Tom is finishing up, those types of things. But overall, if any of y'all listened into the meeting last night, it went beautifully, and we should definitely contract them to event plan our next meeting. But I do think that we should use all the methods that they offered, even if we are going to phase out some of them. I think it behooves us to be transparent and offer as many possibilities for contact with us as possible.
Okay. Thank you, Council Member. I've got a couple of people in the queue with questions. Council Member O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I guess this is maybe for some mix of ITS and council office and planning as we think through this. So, it sounds like right now our plan is to stick with WebEx for the majority of what we're doing. And I guess, going through our last meeting, thinking through what Councilmember Fee just described from having experienced both, I do think we can improve. I still fundamentally think this is the wrong tool for trying to do governance if we're going to be doing this for any period of time. But I think to make it a better tool, we really do need to try to get to a place. I think the three goals that I think we need to have, and I want to figure out where we are in kind of making progress on all these are, we need to have item number one is we need to have whoever is running any given portion of the meeting, whether that's a committee chair, vice mayor, or pro tem, if there are presentation materials, those need to be visible at a minimum to the people running the meeting. Item two is that really ideally needs to be in sync with whatever winds up being captured for Metro Nashville Network. I don't know if that's a technical possibility right now, but I think that's a big one. And then item three is I still think introducing video and making sure that, everything from facial expressions to just having a little bit more in the way of context clues adds just another note of transparency and kind of humanity to the process that is really important to governing. And I want to see if we can get a status update on all three of those things, please.
So, Mr. Durbin, I think you're on with that.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. So there are some other tools that we're putting in place for this next meeting that don't necessarily address those items specifically, but do capture some of the what I heard from the last committee meeting, executive committee meeting. And since then, I've spoken to council members Allen and Murphy and Rosenberg about the major issues as I heard. So public participation is one of them. And you just heard us talk about that component. We also worked with Granicus, who, we have a full bore legislative voting management solution from end to end that is being delayed. So we worked with Granicus, and we have actually put into place components of their system that will allow a couple of things. First off, it will allow remote voting. So the roll call situation, which seemed to be such an issue last time, and with 40 people, how could it not be? So that will be replaced with a basically it's almost a semblance of what you have on your tablets today, where you can request to speak and where you can vote appropriately. Then those things are captured, and Elizabeth does her magic with those things. The second thing
that's a big deal. So I'm very glad to hear that. So thank you.
Second thing it does, it also allows that management of requests to speak, and I absolutely understand that managing a meeting, of 40 plus people who are trying to do a deliberative process in the interface as it is, trying to figure out who's got their hand raised, and furthermore, the order in which those hands were raised are going to cause problems. So that's the other issue that this Granicus software has solved. Slade and El Geldenese and my team have spent a tremendous amount of time over the last couple of weeks. Immediately following, we made calls immediately following the executive committee meeting last time, and they put that in place. And so I think you all will be pleased with that.
That's a huge step forward, and I'm very glad to hear both of those things.
So then let's speak to the items you just brought up. So first off, people running meeting with presentation. That's doable today. That is a standard WebEx presentation option, as long as they have the presentation that is available. So in my mind, that is something that Planning Commission has worked out. And so that's one of the things that we can, or the team, John and my staff can work with Lucy to make sure we understand how that presentation would fit in your model. Following that, unless I'm speaking out of turn, and I'm sure Chris Singleton with M&N will let me know, there's no issue at all with the feed taking whatever those presentations are being shared and including those in the official record. So we fully anticipate that that's possible. I think if you review, and again, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of the situation and the process is that the Planning Commission meeting, you would see that if you went and looked at the video. The third topic you brought up is the introduction of video. So here's the deal. As I'm watching Roku, Channel 5, Roku in the morning, WebEx is running commercials on Roku that basically say WebEx is designed for video. And it is. However, as I stated last time, it is a matter of risk mitigation. It is a risk when there is something that we cannot control in the mix. And what we cannot control is the bandwidth that's coming from the 40 plus, 50 plus individuals who are going to be on a call. So it continues to be our recommendation that by using audio only, you mitigate that risk somewhat. Have I delved directly into kind of what additional risk percentage we present by that? No, I haven't. However, at the end of the day, should this body say we want to do video, as long as John Cooper and the vice mayor are okay with that, I'm okay with that. I just want to put out there and present a solution that presents us the best possible chances for having a successful meeting. And I don't know what much else to say about it other than that, Councilman.
No, I appreciate that. I think it is worth testing, and maybe we could test some publicly noticed thing in a smaller group format. I know in those meetings where it was available as an option, a handful of council members did have their video enabled, and again, I think it's just as applicable. It is an enhancement to the process that I think is worth at least trying to stress test some of that because I fundamentally agree we want to do risk mitigation here, but we also need to engage in governance. And so, there's some amount of risk inherent in all of this.
I agree. So I'll take direction from the Vice Mayor. And Vice Mayor, I do have one other topic to discuss with you.
Okay, well, hold on just a second. Mr. Cooper, were you going to chime in on that?
I was just going to say that I had a video WebEx meeting today from home, and I have high-speed internet, and it was a disaster. It just my bandwidth kept going in and out, and everything was freezing up. So I do see the risk in that.
Okay. All right. Keith, back to you, and then I know I've got a couple other people in the queue as well. So
right.
Keith, go ahead.
Thank you. And so one of the other things related to some of the items from the last executive committee, we talked about Granicus. So one of the things that having those Granicus tools does is it introduces yet another set of software into the mix. So one of the things I'd like to do is ask for this group's support in something. So one of the issues that we've seen is that we have council members as well as anybody attending these meetings who are using a huge variety of devices to call in or attend these meetings. And we talk about risk. So one risk that we can't mitigate is the user's home internet connection. One of the risks that we can mitigate is the device that Metro Council members use to attend meetings. And so what I'd like to propose is that as we have a requirement now, if we want to do remote voting and we want to bring the features for the Vice Mayor to manage those requests to speak, I'd like to propose that we provide new laptops that were already slated for rollout with the Granicus system to all council members over the next week. The consistent WebEx software would be installed and configured. The consistent Granicus software would be installed and configured as well. So by doing that, we are eliminating the, let's just say, large variability that it takes. And as you all have been in meetings that have been interrupted because there is some issue with the software someone is using. So we have 41 laptops that have been prepared. We have an image associated with that includes all the software. We would like to propose that over the next week, we work with your members to come to a Metro location to get those devices and spend about 10 or 15 minutes logging into the network, giving a quick overview of that software, and then talking about things like new features that I think people will like as well. We now have self-service password reset. So if people are resetting their passwords on their banking account or their investment account or their utility account, it's the same stuff. We now have that, and we'd like to show you how to use it. And then we'd like, at least for this first meeting, for council members to use these devices to mitigate that risk associated for this first time only. And then preferably use that same device going forward for the length of time that we do meetings remotely. At some point, we will have the opportunity to look into that software on other devices. But at this point, we'd like to, as I have mentioned to you in the past, we like to start small and start conservative. We got limited resources, and then build from there as we have successes, as opposed to overextend ourselves and underdeliver. Again, these things are, we already have them. There's no additional outlay of funds required for this. But what would be required for would be a visit a visit to a Metro location to pick them up, and then we would work with those of the council members who aren't comfortable setting up their home Wi-Fi or the Wi-Fi that they're going to use to these things. We would help you telephonically or via WebEx meeting to do that. So, Vice Mayor, I'd like to ask this body for comments or questions and to ask for support in this direction.
All right. Thank you, Keith. So I know Council Member Allen is next, but I'd like to hear from everybody. She may already have a question. Let me ask you one question first, Keith. So if everybody said this was a good idea, you could arrange to have those laptops in the council office and people could go there to have pick it up and get their 15, 20 minutes of kind of overview and training?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'll first comment on Keith's suggestion. I would love to have something that that he knows how to tell me what to do, because I have managed to mess it up just about every week. So that sounds like a great option. And my understanding is that those will ultimately then be sitting on our desk. So it's not. I mean, it's equipment that's bought anyway. And then my second comment is I watched the Planning Commission meeting until about 9 o'clock last night. So kudos to Kathleen for hanging in there. And the thing that impressed me the most was, number one, how smoothly it went, but number two, how many people expressed concern at having to do a public hearing that way, although it seemed to work very well. So I think as we look at having our first public hearing, that we take Lucy's advice about starting small and perhaps avoiding a lot of controversial issues, because regardless of how well it goes, I think there will be a similar percentage of people who just feel like we've put them in a difficult situation and in a controversial zoning issue that adds a layer that we might not necessarily want to add.
Okay, thank you. So there has been discussion. I talked to Mr. Cooper before. I think we see this as obviously, you know, we've got to start someplace, and there was discussion about trying to figure out which bills on there coming up on public hearing are probably not going to be as controversial. So you do limit the number of bills that we look at. And then what we'd have to do is try to figure out, working with council members to figure out which ones are probably going to be deferred anyway, and then maybe limit the scope. So we understand what you're saying, Councilmember Allen. Mr. Cooper, any comment on that?
Yes, Vice Mayor, we went through the bills that are scheduled for public hearing today, and there are, I think, 44 of them that have been advertised. I had asked Matt to kind of give me a synopsis or his anticipation of what would be controversial and what wouldn't. He identified 6 that he thought would be controversial, another 10 that possibly could be, and then the rest didn't think would be controversial at all.
Okay. So so that was just Matt looking at it, but we would need to talk to council members and figure out what they wanted to do with all those bills, correct?
Right. That was just our first step to look at what was advertised.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Councilmember Syracuse?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Keith, yes, I'd be very supportive of what you prescribed there. Just a question about that. If we already have a Metro laptop, is the device that you're suggesting something different than an already issued Metro laptop?
So at this time, I think we have, though we offer every council member a Metro laptop, I think we have 10 of 40 that have them, and it sounds like you are one of them. We want to make it easy, so you can either keep that one and turn it in at some point in the future, or we could do that transfer of data from that for you, what little there should be on the laptop, into this new device. So we would work with you, because we want to make this, and we recognize there's a lift associated for you with this. We want to make this as easy as possible for you.
10-4. All right, thanks.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Other people with questions? Does anybody think this is not a good idea? I know that there would be concerns about, you know, having to come down and pick it up, but I think we could work that out so that we don't have everybody come at the same time, but we kind of sort it out. So, Councilmember Roten?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Yeah, I just curious, Keith, I had purchased a new laptop just a couple months ago. I mean, it's the latest and greatest. Well, I think it's the latest and greatest, but if it works fine with what we have now, do we have to get a new one?
Councilman, again, it is about consistency and risk mitigation. Yours may be the latest and greatest, but I don't know what latest and greatest to you means. Whereas we understand these devices, we understand the software, we understand the security settings, you know, on and on and on. That's what we're talking about. Conceivably, you know, this may not last forever. The governor may change this, and sometime in June we may be going back. You'd be more than welcome to that. But we'd really like to ask that at least for the meetings that you use these devices. We're not asking you to stop using your.
No, that's fine. I was just curious if y'all were saying we really want y'all to use these instead of, even if you had one of had certain requirements on it, you still want us to use the ones that y'all are giving out. And that's fine.
For the meeting. So, yeah. Again, and I'm sorry I didn't make that clear earlier. You're one of the 30 that doesn't have a Metro laptop. Hey, that works for me. And so you continue using it, but when meeting time comes, if you'd log into this device and use that for the meeting and then put it up till the next meeting.
Gotcha. That's all I needed to know. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Mendez.
Thanks. I think I might have a similar question, but just to confirm. So you're anticipating that these laptops really are just to use for meetings, not to conduct our lives off of, right?
I think we are comfortable either way. We're comfortable either way.
All right. So that helps. And then, so not to make it all about me, but so I got a laptop that's got highly secure, confidential communications into a law firm that's as particular or more particular than, well, probably as particular as you guys are about security. I feel like I'm probably going to create more headache than it's worth to try to get my law firm's super secure communications to play well with your super secure communications on the same laptop, and I shouldn't necessarily try to do that.
I think that is very safe to say, which is why, you know, again, if you will use this laptop for these meetings and then use your existing laptop, which is set up for the way you do business, that is perfectly okay. And frankly, you can have that laptop open and with your notes and whatever, and then run the meeting from the Metro laptop is one way to look at it. But you brought into kind of the open kind of one of the issues when people do have those security settings that are on there. Those are part of the things that can create some real issues that we'd like to avoid in the short term. If this lasts longer than anybody wants it to last, then we'll have time to, if we need to distill down to a single laptop. Let's just hope it doesn't last that long.
All right, that makes a lot of sense to me, Keith, and I think given the fact that we are all moving quickly to try to set up uniform, good communications quickly, I think that's a smart way to go. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Durbin, just from a functionality standpoint, I know, there's a pretty big variation between how the first kind of meeting and committee meetings went and the second time around. And I know for myself, I have twice put my agenda up on screen in the WebEx event. I know, much to Mr. Hurd's dismay, I'm working off a Macintosh laptop, and so, was doing that through the preview program on my own laptop to make that what I guess effectively is my committee report available to my colleagues. And so I was personally, scrolling through that agenda so that it would be kind of where we were in the meeting. Also, we've talked about kind of the challenges of trying to also look at raised hands and so on and so forth. And I lost that functionality at the last meeting just through some technical things. But I guess I would say, while I concur with my colleagues, I think we'd all like to be able to see the committee reports / agendas, something on screen. If it's not video of all of us, then, for the main meeting, at least maybe of the vice mayor or something, something other than just the white and gray initialed circles. But having done this previously on my particular laptop and understanding that, would there likewise be for us with the new laptop a similar preview platform functionality through which we could, as committee chairs, put up our agenda? And I never saw the meeting from the community side of things to know if that was in fact visible to the community or just to the people participating in the events. But I would suggest by next meeting, we would get to a place where we, as executive committee, we all being committee chairs, could have our agendas up online. But it's not just one page. I mean, I have an 11-page. Looking back at my agenda from last time, it's 11 pages. And then additionally, we as committee chairs who have big agendas, we work to kind of manage that agenda, similar to what others were speaking about, like, resolutions for discussion, resolutions on consent, bills on second reading for discussion, bills on second reading for deferral or withdrawal, like, trying to consolidate and make those committee meetings as efficient as we can. But what that means vis-a-vis the committee and the community from a transparency standpoint is, my committee report agenda for my colleagues on the committee doesn't look the same as the one that the clerk has up online as the agenda for the Public Works Committee, right? That just has every possible thing that's before us, every aerial encroachment, everything just kind of in a numeric order. So what's online is kind of different from what we use functionally that helps the meeting, and I think then makes the meeting more clear to anybody kind of from the outside participating. So I wonder if you could just speak to that functionality related to committee agendas, because I know that'll inform. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right, with the larger council agenda, which is just multi pages. So, like, Vice Mayor would refer sometimes to what page number on the agenda he was on, but I didn't have that agenda in front of me, and so just kind of that functionality. If you could speak to that, Mr. Durbin.
So I think this is related to what Councilman O'Connell was talking about. So native built into the functionality, but that is not being used yet, except for, I think, in the Planning Commission, some presentations. I mean, there's the ability to show, share screens, share applications, share presentations. So, and again, I'm making this up as I go along, but I feel like there are mechanisms by which, from the most simplest, that during the course of the meeting, you could as easily as share the existing clerk's agenda and walk through it, to something like getting more creative, where you even take that agenda, cut it into pieces, into a presentation of some sort, and then you step through that presentation to provide more clarity on the screen. And so you're just not looking at a bunch of boxes with initials in them. I think we're happy to help think through as the week, over the course of the next week. Now that we have recognized this, and I've got it on my list from when Councilman O'Connell spoke,
How is a good way to do that? And we'd love to have you involved in that conversation as well, to make sure we're getting exactly what and can do exactly what you're talking about. I think technically it's a piece of cake. It's just making sure that it's aligning with what your vision for the meeting is.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Murphy?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I was wondering if this is something that you could send out to, I mean, I'm sure you're probably going to send out another like email to all of us with little helpful reminders and tips for our next meeting. I found at this last, just similar to Angie, similar to Freddie, similar to a lot of the committee chairs, I put a lot of time and effort into trying to create an agenda that is efficient and consistent for my meeting. And this past meeting, not only did we had some technical issues going back and forth with staff, but the real problem is that letters were sent to me that were either not sent to other committees, or letters were sent to other committees but not sent to me. But also the main problem is that the letter sent to me was actually not what the sponsor intended. So again, I don't know if this is because miscommunications between staff and council members or whatnot, but it really kind of jacked up my meeting, and we lost the efficiency that I had put a lot of time and effort into, because council members either were changing their mind on the fly or letters were sent to me in error. And so I don't know how we mitigate that, but I at least, not to get on my high horse or soapbox here, but given this week of spending 15 hours just in meetings, and I spend at least an hour reorganizing the council, the committee agenda, it just is really frustrating in the meeting. And I think it looks bad to the public if they're listening in, that we have an agenda that is then, okay, the motion is to defer one meeting. Oh, wait, I wanted to withdraw that. Oh, wait, I didn't want to withdraw that. And so I just, if there's some way we can express that nicely to council members, that letters really need to be submitted, good golly, more than 30 minutes before the committee starts, but also they need to be accurate letters, because it just leads to further confusion and frustration, at least on the chair's part. So I would love some feedback from other council members too, if on how we can do that better.
All right. Thank you, council member. I think it's one of those things, as we get, as we go through this process and get more used to trying to get through this, maybe there's a better way of doing it. And obviously we've got council staff on the phone that can try to help you with that and help other council members with it as well. So I'm looking for other comments from anybody, either in response to Councilmember Murphy's question or anything else. Is there, maybe I'll do it in kind of a broad way. Is there anybody that has problems with this idea of trying to get the laptops out, everybody would be on the same page, and we have a much better way of making sure that it all works at the same time? Anybody have any problems with everybody, if we set up a way to get these things out to you all sometime in the middle of next week? Anybody have any problems with doing it that way? Councilmember Roberts?
I think it's a great idea. The laptops really makes so much sense to me. And this may be cost prohibitive, but is it possible that we could overnight them to all the council members?
So council member, the issue is that in order to set you up appropriately, you've got to log in from within a Metro facility at one time. And then there's also some training and other things that we'd like to do and make sure you get the lay of the land.
Sure.
That's what keeps that from happening. I wish it was that easy.
Yeah, can't be that easy. Okay, I just thought I'd ask. I think it's a great idea.
All right, so we may be able to FedEx you to the Metro office. And then
That's good enough.
back. Okay. All right, Councilmember Swope?
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are.
Oh, I didn't mean to raise my hand. My apologies.
That's okay. You put your hand.
You know, while you got me though, I don't suppose these could be Macintosh systems, could they?
I think they're already purchased, right? Mr. Durham already sitting there.
Metro does not support Macintoshes. We support Windows machines. And part of it is that the consistency of being able to support, especially in this day and age, extending support to another platform just is not feasible right now.
Yep. That's why we have trouble with video. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Roten?
Yeah, Mr. Vice Mayor, I didn't want Larry Hager to get off with not letting everybody know that he's sitting on a patio looking out over the Gulf of Mexico right now.
Councilmember Hager, you're recognized for a response. There he is.
I'm working down here on another place, so I came back to the condo so I could be in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. All right, any other comments on any of this? There was a response about having committee appointments separated by 30 minutes. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I think we will proceed ahead with this. I'm going to need John Cooper's help, and I think Hannah Zeitlin's also on this call. So we'll need some help from everybody in terms of making this stuff work. So Mr. Cooper, a question for you. I assume we can get this worked out by working with IT. That's the first question. The second question is probably a little longer, and that is, how do we make sure that notice is properly given to folks to understand how this process works? So I understand that we may be able to go through and figure out a more limited agenda, but how do you make sure, because I would guess that all the bills have been properly noticed by this time, but how would we get a kind of a list out, and how did planning do it to make sure that people understand how to call in?
So planning actually set up a website which we would mirror that would, based on this call today, would go live next Tuesday, a week before the meeting, that lays out the various ways to communicate. My suggestion after listening last night is that we actually just use the call-in function and not use the email and voicemail. I think the participation is actually greater, like Lucy said, for people who are able to sit at home and call in as opposed to drive down to the courthouse and park. So I felt like that was a good way to do it, and that the public was heard. But that's a decision that we would need to make before posting that website.
Okay, so I understand about having not people come down, but what about if they want to do it in writing? Can you do that as well, or no?
Well, I think what the Planning Commission did is they allowed comments to be emailed to the commission, and then those were presented.
Okay, so we could do that as well if we wanted to.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, I think I understand about not having people come down to the courthouse. That probably doesn't make
well, actually, we will, for legal reasons, have to have the courthouse available. All of the notices that were mailed out list the courthouse as the location of the meeting. And so to avoid jeopardizing a vote, I think we could have the podium in the back of the chamber available. Planning did that for both of their meetings, and no one showed up because they made it clear on the website and through the communication that you're encouraged to use one of these other methods.
All right. So what we would do is we'd have that available. We'd go to a website option where people would understand that they could send in comments by writing, or they could also be a part of it by calling in the night of the public hearing and call. Would it also make sense to have to send something out to council members that do have bills that are coming up, or all council members for that matter, to be able to get it out through their networks, just to let people know that this is a possibility and people can call in if they want? What I'm particularly interested in, I guess, is again, I think it's probably smart to go through these bills and talk to each council member and look for the ones that can be deferred, which are going to generate a lot more interest and push those off. The ones that, obviously most of the time when we have these public hearings, we have a number of bills that no one ever shows for at all. So we can try this, but I do want to make sure that people who do want to say something have the opportunity, that they know about these ways, and that they can communicate. So I'm not sure of. I'm trying to find out the best way to get as much information as we can. It sounds like maybe there was even something on Channel 3 or something that allowed people to understand how the option to
right. As Keith said, they are doing the public service announcement that will. We've been working on the script for that this week. What the council office will do Monday is we will contact all of the council members who have items scheduled for public hearings to see how they want to proceed. And for the ones where we know they want to defer them, we will go ahead and list that on that webpage, stating that it's our intention that it's our understanding these bills are to be deferred.
Okay, so people will have an opportunity to see that as well early. Okay. All right. Councilmember Syracuse.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Two things. So what I'm hearing is that we had, 40 bills on public hearing that were deferred to May 5th from April? Is that correct?
Mr. Cooper?
44.
And then how many are coming up for May 5th on a regular schedule?
Well, the 44 that's for April and May together.
Very good. Okay. Okay. So we anticipate then having a public hearing on May 5th with roughly 40 bills.
Okay. Correct. Although we assume that a number of those will be deferred, or we could have a 60-hour meeting.
Right. Absolutely. So in thinking ahead, especially as we include budget public hearing and the whole budget process, should we be thinking about how we can potentially space out public hearings potentially to include the second meeting of the month instead of just the first? We should just be thinking about that, how we kind of start to ease ourselves back into a regular routine, be it virtually or in person. Just that's a thought.
Absolutely.
The second thing that I want to mention is, as we roll out this method of public hearing, I think it would be really effective for us to create simple, for lack of a better way of saying it, marketing materials. For example, is how the mayor's office comes out with simple graphics that represent like the plan to reopen Nashville or whatever. Do we have resources, the availability of being able to put together simple guides, documents, that kind of thing that we can use to market, that to let people know we're doing this and this is how we're going to do it?
Yes, I think we can work with ITS to come up with a fairly concise one-pager that can be shared throughout the community about how to do this.
I think that would be great, and especially as council members have bills coming up on public hearing, they can use that then to help their constituents that are, like at the planning last night, may have some anxiety and stress and concern about transparency and whatnot, that we're going ahead with public hearing. But if we can clearly articulate this is how you do it, and there's really no change, but that this is how we're going to do it. Thanks.
Councilmember Syracuse, I think that's a good idea. I think based upon what I hear, I think we can probably come up with, it sounds like we've got kind of a plan in place. I like the idea of having, kind of a sheet that also goes out. I would guess, and I don't know if the Planning Commission did it, but maybe something that goes out through the press as well, that that tells people how we're going to do it. So you promote as much as you can so people do know that there's a place to go if they're interested in participation. So you're trying the best you can to get all the information out as possible.
Yeah, I agree. Some sort of media release, and Vice Mayor, if you want to get in front of a couple news channels to let the folks know at home, we're starting this, and please engage with it. You know,
I think that's a job for the pro tem. Let me think about that. Okay. Okay. So what we'll do, I think, Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I wanted to thank Pro Tem Syracuse for his suggestion and heartily agree. I think this is something that those of us who've served on council for several years now have long felt. We need a communications person who is savvy in this regard. So, whether that's press releases that need to go out or, just standard stuff. I mean, the planning department has a Twitter account, the clerk has a Twitter account, ITS has a Twitter account. I feel like there's so many of us who are separately, independently putting together little things to inform our constituency. And, I always heartily retweet and so forth, stuff that comes from various metro entities, health department, mayor's office, and so forth. So, I think as we have a new normal, I concur with Director Kemp. I think it's going to be interesting going forward to see if we retain these platforms for engagement. But, I think we're just kind of moving into a space, and have been there for a while, where we all as council members could benefit from having some sort of kind of unified communications, marketing type assistance in our office. So I just wanted to put in a word for that and thank the Pro Tem for his suggestion.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. I agree with Councilwoman Henderson and Councilman Syracuse. And I just wanted to add, in addition to Vice Mayor maybe doing some media or getting on the news. I'm not sure when the mayor does his daily press updates. I know he includes other information sometimes, such as tornado relief. Not sure if maybe that's some type of announcement could be made in that format as well. I just think that it's very important that while we are letting the community know how we're moving forward, that we are considering every part of the community, and not everyone uses social media and not everyone uses technology and websites. So, senior citizens or someone who doesn't have access to technology, we just want to make sure that they also know how we're moving forward. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I was going to say Councilmember Kemp, but Ms. Kemp, you're recognized.
Oh. I would make a terrible council member. Okay. Right. I just wanted to say that we did do press releases. I'm happy to share them to the extent it would be helpful. One thing we did that I thought was helpful, I scheduled a meeting with the neighbor to neighbor sort of community organization that I know a lot of you are familiar with or may have participated with. They have kind of a steering committee. And they were able to sort of vet some different ideas that we had. And actually the Callin was one that I heard many of them say they were comfortable with. I'm so glad Councilmember Porterfield brought up the question of equity, because I do think that there is some really careful thought and messaging that needs to be conveyed to the public, depending on how many hearings you have and what communities might be affected. It was easier for us at the last meeting because we had kind of a narrow set of cases, and we worked pretty closely with the council members on those. I do think you will hear those issues raised. What if we don't have a computer? How do we participate? And I think really over communicating could I'm not a communication expert, but I would definitely urge this conversation around how to communicate what you're trying to accomplish, because that was the one thing that kept me up, honestly, at night about having the planning commission meeting. Not wanting to, really wanting to say that it's important for government to continue for these reasons, for the health of the city, but that we're balancing that with citizens' needs and rights to participate, as all of you have well said. And that really didn't convey to a number of neighbors. And I don't know if we could have done a better. I think we're learning and going to have to continue to work at it. And hopefully, as we have a proof of concept, people will become more comfortable, but it is something that's there that has to be taken head on. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you. All right, well, it sounds like we've got a plan. I think what we'll do is work with Mr. Cooper in the council office, try to figure out and how this will all be laid out, all the information. We're also going to take into try to figure out how we get all these laptops to you all. So I'll work with Mr. Cooper on that. We'll get a message out to everybody on Monday. We will space out the receipt of the laptops and the training for all council members so that we don't overlap, so you're not running into each other. We'll make sure we get that one squared away as well. So we have a lot of work to do next week. But anyway, I think we have a plan. Let's see how we do this. Let's see if we can get it done correctly. And Mr. Durbin, Ms. Kemp, thank you for being on the call, Slade. Thank you for setting this up. We appreciate all council members taking their time on a Friday afternoon to go through this. This has been important. You all, I think that's it. Any further things before we close? Seeing none. Okay, you all stay safe, be healthy, and we'll be getting information out to you early next week. Thank you all for being on the call. All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.